Becoming a human lie detector is a very useful skill to develop. Everybody lies to everybody else. But the myth is, or the idea is, or the suspicion is that people lie because they're evil or bad or malicious is not really true. Most of the time people lie is to get out of an uncomfortable situation. It's not because they want to hurt the other person. It's not because they deliberately want to deceive the other person. It's just that in the moment, telling what we believe is a white lie is just a way to get out of an uncomfortable situation. You meet a girl in a club. You talk to her. You ask her for her number. She says, oh yeah, let's get together. And she gives you her number. You believe that she likes you. But in reality, she didn't really want to give you the number, but giving you the number and then just not answering her phone is a lot easier than saying, look, I like talking to you, but I'm not interested in dating you. That's a very hard thing to say. It's a lot easier to say, yeah, sure, here's my number, and then never see the person again. And once the person is out of sight, out of mind, the ramifications of the lie don't really matter that much. Or if you're a salesperson and you have a customer and the customer says, oh yeah, sure, I'd love to buy the product. I'm really busy. I'll be back tomorrow, I promise. And the salesperson thinks, haha, I got a sale. And they start to fantasize about all the money. But in reality, the customer didn't really want to buy the product, but saying they want to is a lot easier than saying, look, Mr. Salesperson, you spent the last hour asking me what I want. You spent the last hour telling me all about your product and showing me how your product can satisfy my needs and take away my pain point. But I don't want to buy it from you. I want to buy it from somebody else. I want to buy it at a cheaper price. That's hard to say. And so customers, as they say in sales, all buyers are liars, or buyers are liars. And so the first idea to accept is that people don't lie because they're being malicious. People lie because it's a lot easier to lie than to tell the truth. But the problem is, if you go through life, we need to go after our ambitions. We need to achieve our goals. We need to achieve our outcomes. And all of these require the participation of other people. But if half the people we meet are lying to us and giving us false impressions about what's going to happen in the future, that just makes it a lot harder to achieve our ambitions. So becoming a human lie detector is a very efficient way to more effectively meet the right people and filter out the wrong people so you can more effectively go after your ambitions. But there's a couple of ideas we need to understand first before we can understand how specifically to become a human lie detector. The first myth is, or the first idea is, that there's not really a universal set of traits that people exhibit when we lie. There are certain ones, like if you touch your face a lot, if you blink a lot, if you can't make eye contact, but these are all kind of these micro movements, and trying to keep track of a whole list of specific micro movements while you're talking to somebody is very, very difficult. Sure, if you're a police interrogator and the person sitting in the room with the cop doesn't really feel like they have the freedom to leave, then it's a lot easier to keep track of all this stuff. But if you're having a conversation with someone and they start to feel like they're being interrogated, they're just going to leave the conversation. The other idea is that most of us don't like to find out if we're being lied to. It's much easier to believe the lie than to step back and actually ask if we're being lied to. If you're a guy and you're in a club and a girl gives you her number, you're much more willing to believe this and believe you're going to get some in the future than doing some kind of lie detector program to see if she's lying to you or not, to see if you're maybe wasting your time. It's a lot easier to believe the lie than actually check the lie. So there's kind of a two-sided thing. It's a lot easier to tell a lie than say, I'm not interested in dating you. But on the other side, it's a lot easier to believe the lie than actually check to see if she doesn't really want to date you. Similarly, if you're a salesperson, it's a lot easier to believe the lie because now you think, I'm going to get a sale tomorrow. That's a good feeling. It's a lot easier to believe the lie than to step back and check to see whether or not they're lying to you. And so how do we become human lie detectors? Well, the first step is to understand that everybody lies a little bit differently. There's not a universal set of traits, and it's a lot more difficult if you're going to have to remember all these specific traits. It's a lot easier to calibrate the person from an energetic standpoint. This is an exercise people do in NLP seminars or other communication seminars. If you have a partner you're speaking with and they tell a lie and then they tell the truth and then they tell a lie and then they tell the truth, you can calibrate their truth-telling energy from their lying energy. And so long as both people know you're doing this exercise, you can sort of tell when they're lying and when they're telling the truth. And this is spookily accurate. Once you calibrate somebody's lying energy, where you both know they're lying and they're trying to pretend they're telling the truth, and you calibrate their truth-telling energy, then when they tell a lie or a truth and you don't know which is which, it's very, very easy to see. And you don't have to worry about micro movements or eye movements. You just kind of calibrate your energetic sensing part. And you don't have to think about any kind of specific things. And you don't have to pay attention to the words they're saying. That's the best part about becoming a human lie detector. You don't have to listen to what they said and then listen to what they said 10 minutes later to see if they contradict each other. That takes way too much brain energy. When you calibrate somebody's energy, it's a lot easier to just relax and get kind of an energetic feeling that they're telling the truth and an energetic feeling that they're lying. The problem is this exercise requires that both people know you're lying and both people know you're telling the truth. The thing that we would like to do is, how do you do this conversationally when the other person doesn't know you're doing this? How can you calibrate somebody when they're telling the truth and when they're telling a lie when they don't know you're doing that? The answer is you ask questions that will elicit congruent responses. And then you ask questions that have a high probability of eliciting incongruent responses. Because when they're speaking incongruently, they don't believe what they're saying. When they're speaking congruently, they believe what they're saying. Luckily, there's a whole list of questions that have a very high probability of eliciting congruent answers and a whole list of questions that have a very high probability of eliciting incongruent answers. And so whenever you're calibrating people, you just ask a few of these questions and calibrate their energy. You ask a few of these questions and you calibrate their energy. You can do this with anybody over a few conversations. And once you calibrate somebody, you will know their congruent telling the truth energy and you will know their incongruent lying energy. And if you do this with all the people that you know, if you do this as a matter of course when you first start talking to somebody within the early parts of the conversation, you can tell when they're lying and you can tell when they're telling the truth. And this will be very, very effective in making sure you create relationships with the right people and you don't waste time with the wrong people.